there is a huge opportunity here for things to move towards entrepreneurship as long as we provide the education needed to do that. I think what we're lacking is mentors. We're lacking a platform where we can inform people about these choices, the education. I think that's what's missing because in training they're not giving that education. So if they're not giving it in training, then they need to get it from somewhere else.
So that's a good segue. How do you feel you're able to ensure having steady work? Because I know you also do some non-clinical work, right? And then also, I think there are a lot of bad predatory contracts. So sometimes it's harder to walk away from those if you don't have steady work or steady income. Because I think there's a misconception that, yeah, W 2, you're going to at least get paid like regularly on the dot. But when you're running your own S Corp or working as a 1099 worker, that's not necessarily the case. So, how do you balance like, keeping your autonomy while also making a paycheck?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, that's something that, I think all of us three deal with. The good thing is not to get comfortable. I think that's the best advice I can give. So even when things are going good, I'm still looking for other opportunities. I'm always looking for an opportunity that's better than the one that I have. It's almost like, I have my plate of food here, but I'm still looking at the dessert and I'm across the table and I'm thinking, should I, get that dessert closer to me? Because you never know that is one of the cons. You never know with 1099 when they're going to cut you off or when things are going to turn south, and that could mean you're disagreeable with whoever the leadership is for that particular gig. Don't get along with them anymore, so it's time to cut them off. And then you have to kind of look for the next opportunity. So I always try to keep um, let's say I know how much I can handle on a given week or a given day. Maybe I can do, different things. But I always keep kind of these backups kind of in the back of my head. Kind of work in progress. I call them work in progress gigs. And those can be telemedicine, those can be non-clinical work, disability reviews, expert witness, consulting. Um, One of the things, for example, when one nonprofit organization, they added me as a consultant for the Epilepsy Foundation to just review some epilepsy Spanish materials. It's doesn't pay that much, but it's something. Something that keeps me going. So yeah, you always have to kind of be on the lookout for the next opportunity. So I have all these warnings on my phone, on LinkedIn. There's Doc Cafe. I get Doc Cafe announcements. I get obviously the agencies are always swarming me with emails and text messages, and I usually ignore them unless it's like something that piques my interest, and then I'll respond back. So to keep that uncertainty on check, I always kind of try to anticipate. Um, because the cycle of a 1099 job can be between 2 to 3 years, just like in W-2. It's not a long cycle, unless, of course, you negotiate a direct contract with a hospital and things go well and nothing changes, which I haven't seen that yet. But if nothing changes and stays good and the same, then maybe it can go past 2 or 3 years. So Um, one of the gigs that I have that's pretty stable right now is really close to my house. It's about 3, 4 minutes away, and it's an academic center. The pay is not like amazing, but it's very chill work because I get to supervise residents and fellows on the hospital and on interpreting EEGs, and they're very understaffed. They always need people. If anything, they said that if they had more money, they would like hire me to do more shifts. So there's kind of a limit to how much I can work there because it's a dollar amount limit. It's mostly the contract has like a X amount of money limit. So then you have to kind of request the county to increase it so that I can work, maybe 2, 3, or 4 more weeks more. But that job, that like gig has been really stable, and I haven't had any problems whatsoever. Knock on wood. I've been there for more than 2 years already, and I'm hoping that it keeps going. So if you find one of those are the ones to keep. Um, Sometimes I wanted to point out sometimes the compensation isn't the do all. You might find some gigs you're willing to work for less money, but because it's so easy and the time commitment is so low, you might be able to say, well, I can get this work done in a relatively fast way and then go back home at like 10 a.m. and be with my kids. Um, that's valuable, right? Yeah, or if you be like, the mornings are really busy for me. I'm going to go into the hospital at 9:30, 10 a.m. work, and then I can go back home, in the middle of the day and, be with my family. That has value too. So I know that was kind of a long answer for a very complicated question, but yes, you always gonna have to be on the lookout for new opportunities, and you have to kind of keep the hustle. But I like it. It's not for everybody, but I like doing it because the autonomy, the freedom, the work-life balance makes it all worth it.
I think my mantra is always be open to opportunities, always network. On my link, I mark myself as open for opportunities. Why not? And especially with the autonomy that the independent contractors have, you can add opportunities and you can kind of diversify. So that brings me to work-life balance. So do you think as an independent contractor, would you ever consider going back to full-time W-2 employment?
Yes. So great question. I mean, that's kind of the main reason why I do this is and work-life balance can be defined in different things. For some people, it means having every weekend off, which you can do that. For some people, it may mean this is more for me. It may mean I'm going to take a whole month of vacation off, go somewhere. Um, a lot of jobs you're never going to be able to do that. Take 4 weeks in a row, back to back, and be done. For example, in my case, I took 4 months for paternity leave, which here in the U.S., men getting 4 months for paternity leave is kind of unheard of. I mean, none of my friends had that much time in an employed job. So um, that part for me was very important, is controlling the calendar and the time. And when I'm saying like I'm off for this time, I do a lot of leadership work and volunteering in different board memberships. So when I have like those meetings, those conferences, if I need to go to 3 or 4 conferences that year and be like, okay, this is blocked off, who do I ask permission? Oh, it's me. I just have to ask me permission. Um, so I don't have to ask anybody permission. I just be like, block this off in my schedule. It's for my family time, for my conference time, or whatever I want to do. Another example was for my clinical neurophysiology fellowship for the board. Sorry, I found the materials just so hard to get through for that board. So I took 4 weeks off, and I studied 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday, and then I'll take weekends off to study, and I passed, and pass my boards, and not having have to retake it and repay all that money. So I did that as well. So those are kind of some of the examples, at least for me, is that I tend to I can block the holidays. I can take every holiday if I want to, or I can work those holidays. It does depend. You really have the flexibility of deciding your schedule and your calendar. Now, there might be times where you might have to work more because you need the money, right? I mean, that could be an opposite problem for you. If you're employed, you're only limited to X number of hours, and you know, this is how much you can work in 1 month. Last summer, I had to pay for the renovations of the house, and it was expensive. So I worked, I think in June I worked almost like 25 days of the month. It was pretty intense, but I was able to get the paycheck I needed to um, to do all the renovations. And now my home is comfortable. It's comfortable for me and my family. So you get to decide what to do. And honestly, you can't do that when you're employed.
I agree with you. As someone who also kind of works similarly. Definitely, you can't put a price on that autonomy. And I don't think anything would ever make me go back to W-2 employment just because of the independence and the flexibility. You know what I mean? I mean, even if the pay isn't that much more, the flexibility, I think, is priceless because
Yeah,
you get one life, right? You got
yeah.
to live it. Given how things are going currently in healthcare, do you think that the future of physician entrepreneurship is going to be stronger? Like more people are going to be doing what, independent contracting? And if so, do you have any specific advice for folks who are considering this pathway?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, it's already happening. At least in neurology, it's already happening. All of the trainees are not going into outpatient jobs anymore. They all want to do neuro hospitalists, have X amount of hours to work, X amount of days. Um, they're looking for new ways to have more work life balance. And that's what the new generation wants. You know, the Gen Z generation, the Beta, I mean, all the Greek letters that are coming, they want work life balance. So I think entrepreneurship is actually the pendulum is switching back to independent contractor because that's how it used to be back in the day. But it somehow, all these hospital systems consolidated, some buying out all these practices, all these hospitals, and now, there's a huge percentage of physicians who are employed. But I think there's an opportunity. I think the pendulum is going to switch back to entrepreneurship as we go into this new generation because they really don't want to be told what to do. They they don't like, to deal with frivolous arguments with supervisors and administrators. So I think really there is a huge opportunity here for things to move towards entrepreneurship as long as we provide the education needed to do that. I think what we're lacking is mentors. We're lacking a platform where we can inform people about these choices, the education. I think that's what's missing because in training they're not giving that education. So if they're not giving it in training, then they need to get it from somewhere else. And a lot of the physicians are kind of getting into that realm where we need to provide education to the next generation, and and the best way that they look for their information is through podcasts, through social media. They're not looking at books anymore. So we have to kind of go into those platforms and tell people about this, tell them the information that they need so that they can be successful.
I know you've been involved in advocacy. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so I've been involved in advocacy since I was a second year medical student. Um, First, I was a delegate for the American Medical Association for one of my student organizations I was part of. And I wrote resolutions and I did testimony and I would go to legislative visits. It's kind of a passion of mine, advocacy. So pretty much you're kind of using different avenues, let it be writing op-eds or policy briefs or going to the Hill to kind of advocate for legislation that is favorable for patients, for physicians, both employed and independent. So I'm part of the California Physician Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization in California that advocates for universal access to healthcare. So I've been involved in the legislative committee where we've advocated for bills. For example, there's a bill that we supported to keep private equity out of healthcare in California. Um, the other one that we're currently advocating for is to prohibit health insurance companies from imposing more profit sharing costs to minors less than 26 years old so that families, that have people that have, 3, 4 children will have to pay way, even more healthcare costs. And each month, like each year, they're increasing premiums on everybody. So imagine that's the impact that's having on low income and middle income families. So those are the type of things that I do. In Kappa, I'm a board member as well. And then in the past, as a resident, I used to teach policy modules on different topics on healthcare. And what I would do is teach students how to do advocacy. So meaning like, for example, I would teach them how to write a resolution, how to do that, how to be successful, writing policy, policy papers, policy publications. We created a policy curriculum, and actually, it's still happening to this day. This student organization, the Latino Medical Student Association, they have what's called a policy summit, and they go every year to DC, to the WMC headquarters, and um, they talk about different topics of healthcare that impacts Latinos, and they actually go on the Hill to advocate for some of these things. So it's kind of a training ground for medical students, and I'm happy to say that I was part of that with two of my mentors who were from. One of them is Dr. Sola, who started the Policy Summit, and Dr. Meta. They're in Texas and Maryland. Um, so they were really visionary in teaching that there was a need to teach medical students about policy and advocacy. So we created this kind of conference in this curriculum, and it's really great to see, even though we're already out of that role, that this kind of keeps growing and students are taking the lead on a lot of these different activities of advocacy. And I had the opportunity to also be part of a book where we described everything that we did to create this. And that book is available on open source, and medical students can read it if they want to know the institutional history of how we created this. So it's that's kind of one of my passions, and I don't get paid for it, but it's a great way to make an impact in healthcare.
Any closing remarks, Frank? I think we're coming close to time, but if there's any like last pieces of advice or your final message.
Yes. So the advice that I would give is start thinking about this now as a medical student, as a residency fellow. Start thinking about what you want your life to be. What is your priority, right? For some people, their priority is just to get a paycheck, be stable, um, you know, live a pretty simple life. For others, they have other priorities, traveling or be involved, um, leadership. Whatever those are, just write down what you think your goals will be in the next, 5, 10 years. And if that goal includes having work-life balance, having control over your own destiny, having control of your own finances, having a say of what your day-to-day is going to be, then being an independent contractor, being your own business, it might be that might be the best the best part for you. That might be the best path for you. So it's really, you have to kind of look at your values and what is important for you. And if those kind of align with making, being autonomous and making your own decisions, then I think that, you guys should start, checking us out and looking at our podcasts and checking out other people's podcasts who are independent, who are entrepreneurs. Have to start kind of delving yourself in those groups, and then hopefully, you'll find what is the best path for you.
Great. Thank you, Frank. And thanks for tuning in to Be Empowered, the podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear this. Stay strong, stay empowered, and we'll see you next time.